Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, which we for sure have been looking forward to for the last number of weeks. We had the opportunity to get an expert within the global e-commerce world able to participate. But before we're going to start, I'm just going to run through a couple of practical information which could be helpful to everyone. We're just very quickly going to run through, if you're okay with that. And hold on here, there's some technical stuff. This webinar is scheduled for up to 1 hour, and we will spend half of the time approximately to discuss a couple of items or some questions and some trends which are going on at the moment. And afterwards, we will opening up for all of you to ask questions through the chat functions. All of you will be muted during the webinar to make sure we keep all kind of noise out during the dialogues. And if anyone should miss any of the information, then please don't be worried about that, because this session will be recorded and sent to you afterwards together with a survey as well. We'll however, gather all kind of all questions coming in and be sent to you as a Q&A list, so no one are going to be left out during this process. So this was just a little overview of some practical stuff, so everybody know what we're trying to present here in this particular case. So let me see here. Yeah, again, thanks very much. So just a little update or introductions of myself and Scan Global. As I'm sure many of you know, that we're one of the leading logistics providers in this part of the world with a global network around doing air freight, ocean freight, roads, I'll say projects, and also warehouse and fulfillment and e-commerce logistics activities. And this is exactly the part of the business I'm responsible for. I've been working within this industry for nearly 23 years, and half the time been spent outside the country of Denmark and in other functions for other companies as well, where during my journey and career I had the opportunity to meet and get to know the guest we have invited today, Will Treasure, who's an e-com guru and been working on this. But I'd rather let Will introduce himself in this particular. If you will do that, Will, that would be a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. Well, really just extend a welcome to you, to everyone. Also, great to be with you today. I'm calling in from London, England, and just a bit of background on me. I've spent 21 years advising clients on their online e-commerce logistics, their technology and customer service. I was one of the co-founders of Javelin Group, and lastly, Javelin Group has been part of Accenture. And in that time, I've advised around about 100 retailers and brands right across the world. I'm now working as independent board advisor and non-executive director. Thank you, Hans.
Thank you, Will. And I think it's worth to mention also, Will was actually physically able to be at our last year's customer forum in Copenhagen, where we all were having the opportunity to be, I'll say, be together in large audience as well. So I'm really pleased at the possibility to invite you for an update and being able to use this virtual instead. We have experienced in our industry and our company and together with our customers a lot of changes over the last 6 to 8 months, basically what happened. And due to this webinars initiative, it's really due to the fact, like, what is going to happen afterwards? And I believe not only myself are asking that questions to myself and with my colleagues all the time and talking to our clients. That's why it's fantastic we take the opportunities to ask you, getting your viewpoint on that, Will. So if I just could start from, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's great. And you know, what we see is that typically our clients have seen 5 years growth in the last 5 months in their online businesses. In the UK, these are September figures. Non-food is up 40% online, and food online is up 92%, so nearly doubled versus September last year.
Yeah.
And I think in the US it's very similar. They're 43% up year on year. Amazon have just given their Q3 results. They're up 37%. So it's pretty consistent, I think, across the developed countries. And then if you look at it by category, I mean, food is the outstanding performer, but also DIY is up well over 40%. Health and beauty is up. Electricals is overperforming against that 40%. Fashion, interesting enough, is lower. Next, which is one of the UK's leading online and store fashion retailers, they're up 23% year on year online, whereas the Hut Group, which is a global primarily health and beauty retailer, is up 51%. So really sort of backing up that sort of 40% is an average, but it does vary a little bit by sector. And Hans, have you been seeing similar things from your perspective too?
Sure, we sure have in this end as well. Like as you said, you know, like the changes which has happened over the last, you know, 6 to 8 months within the online growth or B2C growth has been more than we've seen, for instance, the previous 5 years. And we definitely have experienced that a large portions of our clients and brands who's has been having the idea of getting on the online journey suddenly can't wait to get on that journey quick enough. And what we kind of experienced, for instance, from a Scandinavian perspective as well, are very similar to the numbers you just presented from the UK and US in particular. However, the food number is not that high up as you indicate, of the 90%, which is maybe something to do that some supermarket chains in this part of the world really had, I'll say, wasn't ready for the online, I'll say, dynamic and growth so quickly as others were. But when it comes to do-it-yourself, and particularly we can see that in the fashion, living and retail, which we have a large, I'll say, client portfolio as well. We have seen a dramatic growth. Actually, we had to measure it over weeks and months, and the month of April and May, we saw growth on 400% to 500% in our own fulfillment centers, where we're managing some of the brands. Of course, that's been flattening out, and we see a growth between some of the brands between 40 and 60% in the B2C sector as well. So it seems very much in the same view as you just mentioning there. And now, of course, questions about how will this, of course, continue. And this is, of course, I'll say, big questions, which we'll all have to wait and see. Just another question here for you, Will. How have online retailers coped with the increase in sales with COVID-19? Can you give a little bit of information about that from your perspective?
Yeah, and this rapid spike in demand that you mentioned there, the 400 to 500%, gives huge logistics challenges, and you know, this is really about flexibility. And a good example in the UK, where demand for food, online food, far exceeded the ability of the supermarkets to supply it. Ocado, who have heavily automated facilities, have been able to increase their online capacity by 50%. They're up 50%. But the store-based food retailers, so Asda, Tesco, Sainsbury's, have more than doubled their capacity over the last 5 months. And it's that essence of flexibility that becomes really important. And I think there are 4 real parts to that flexibility. So one is spare capacity, and in the logistics world that really means space, and just having space to expand into when you need to. The second is the ability to quickly recruit and train labour, the staff, and a very interesting story from Asda. So in March, Asda was faced with online sales just increasing dramatically, but also people panic buying, and so the sales through the stores also went up very quickly too. And what Asda did was, rather than their normal recruitment processes, they said to all of their colleagues, if you can recommend a friend or family member, we will take them on. No questions asked, no interviews, they will just start. and in 1 week they recruited 17,000 people. And
Wow.
very interestingly, in the online world, productivity is monitored because you can see things like pick rates and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And the new colleagues actually performed at the same level as the existing ones, you know, so with no loss of productivity. So terrific story of flexible labor. So there's capacity, there's labor, and then collaborative relationships with your third-party logistics and carrier partners, and forecasting and updating the forecasting is an absolutely key part of that collaboration, but so important to keep the communication lines open and talk to each other and share what you know together. And then lastly, effective crisis management, and this is really for bigger retailers rather than smaller retailers, where it's very important to have a go-to team, to know who is responsible, and so that actually when something like this happens, there's very clear lines of responsibility, decision making, and activities. So those, I think, are the 4 keys to flexible logistics. And Hans, you've lived through this with your logistics operations. How did you manage this increase in demand?
No, thanks for asking. It's very we indeed have experienced that, and there's a number of different angles to take that or to shape that because of the one thing about our customers in general have been changing just over a few months business model. They are very much focused about more than were before. Like, okay, how do we grow our business in the traditional B2B? Now they have to shift to a B2C model. How we do that sustainable, because they're realizing the way how revenue are generated today are maybe not going to be the same in a couple of years from now. And for us to adjust to those, then of course there's a front and a back end. So in order to be able to support the the shift in sales channels, that's also international growth, etc., like that. There indeed we are quite dependent on how we do our integrations and support our customers, not only growing but also surviving, because some have been more have been on a better terms than others, for sure. When that has been said, then something like safety, as you mentioned about space, has been important. And indeed, we have made some warehouse increase spaces in our facilities as well, building up, and we're doing that personally as well. But as you all know, we have to keep the distance to each other, and if we are getting COVID inside our operations facilities, we basically have to shut down operations for a period of time, something we can't avoid. So something like safety has been on the radar for quite some time. So we actually have introduced face masks for all our workers and our facilities for a number of weeks to avoid that. We've seen dramatic growth, as I mentioned, in the e-com business as well, and as you know, that require, new people. We aren't able to go out and hire 200 people within a week. In that way, we are, as many other fulfillment providers, depending on our temporary workers. When you're getting temporary workers into our facilities to help the growth like that, then it's suddenly getting people who's not part of the building as well, and then we have to be even more careful. And then most of all as well, that of course we would like to continuing keeping the business running and supporting, our customers on their journey. But there are certain things like meetings which are not necessarily urgent, activities which aren't needed, etc., like that, without we can run down. These have just been not allowed at our facilities. So I consider it being more like balancing safetiness and to manage the shifting operation activities, while at the same time are very much looking, from a long-term perspective on how we can support the very, very shifting sales channels with the brands I would like to get on. So the technology and safety is definitely some of the things we have put a lot of attention to. If I can jump to the next questions after this, well, then one of the challenges is getting the right stock in the right place. What are the lessons seen from your perspective from a broader supply chain?
Yeah, and this has really been about, I call resilience in the supply chain. Most supply chain networks are complex, I think it's really important to understand who your suppliers are, and interesting who their suppliers are. So your suppliers we call tier 1, and then the people who supply them we call tier 2. So I think there's an exercise for many of our clients of just mapping the tier 1 and tier 2 suppliers and understanding how the supply chain network works. I think second thing is around visibility into suppliers. Often it's very difficult to know, particularly with some of the Far Eastern suppliers, what's actually happening, and getting, I think, daily analytics and daily reporting is a core part of that. And then I think for some retailers and brands, I think there's the option of nearshore sourcing. So it's more expensive if you source products from North Africa or Eastern Europe than if you do it from the Far East. But there is a real benefit of speed, and particularly for replenishment, and even actually manufacturing in your home country. A really interesting example of how this can be a different business model is a business called Boohoo in the UK. Boohoo is a online fashion retailer aimed at 16 to 25-year-olds. Its turnover is well over 2 billion euros per year, and it continues to grow rapidly. Nearly all their sourcing and manufacturing is done in the UK, and their business model is to order very small quantities of every product, and if it sells well, to reorder. And because it's local manufacturing, and because they have a very good network within their suppliers, they can replenish into their warehouses very quickly. As a result, they have very small amounts of terminal stock, and they don't have the big issues of markdown and exiting that many people have. And that more than outweighs the costs of production in the UK, that different business model. So this sort of nearshore sourcing is a real opportunity. Another one is about effective use of working capital. So another UK business, which is also present in Sweden, is called Gear for Music. They sell musical instruments. In fact, they have over 50,000 different items, so it's a pretty broad range. And in February and March, I think, seeing what was happening in China, they ordered a great deal of stock into their warehouses, and as a result, when the demand did come during the pandemic, they were able to meet it, and their sales are up in the 40% as well. But they had the working capital to be able to buy the stock when they needed to. And then I think the last point is about accelerating the planning cycle. So when issues happen, big crises happen, it's really important to move faster. Most retailers work on a weekly planning cycle, and actually if you're weekly, you need to move to daily. And other businesses typically work on monthly planning cycles, and in that situation you probably need to move to weekly planning cycles. But the key point is that when crisis strikes, to actually have your planning much more frequent and more accelerated. So those are the sort of 5 things I sort of look in the resilient supply chain. And I guess, Hans, have you seen some of those or some other things with your clients too?
Yeah, absolutely. Like visibility is equal to, so to say, a sustainable supply chain overall, and has been for many years, all from SKU for PO management activities, sourcing from the vendors, like through the international supply chains into the respective sales channels. So that's of course a key component in order for our customers and retailers in particular with complex supply chain able to manage the supply chain. What we also have then, I'll say, have put a more attention to that's during just the last number of months, how forecasting towards the sales channels is more important than ever, where when you're looking from a traditional supply chain, then I'll say a lot of focus has been from a vendor to a distribution center. But what has happened over the last 5-10 years, the change, in particular the e-commerce, where the consumer buying behavior has become more and more important, and brands are trying to adjust to that. I'll say the controller taking over supply chain is more driven from a pull model instead of from a post model. So So one thing about the visibility from suppliers into distribution or fulfillment center, but in order to be able to work with forecasting, in order to which sales channels at which locations, it's something for sure where we definitely see there could be a huge advantage for not only for fulfillment providers, fulfillment logistics companies like the one I'm representing, but indeed also for customers as well, where traditionally like retailers and fashion brands are producing a amount of pieces. Please go sell the sales divisions of brand. That's not necessarily how it's working today, but without having a proper forecasting and what to expect of these kind of things. So we're definitely putting a lot of I would say efforts and have increased dialogues about the transparency and visibility through the entire supply chain from an end-to-end perspective, where we see the fulfillment distribution center at the distant area as well are playing a significant key point during this change. So yeah, it has been there always a need for it, but the last 6 months has indeed increased the attention on the subject, and not also because of the fact that it's not, there are some brands which are better forecasting than others. So that's also why there could be also help to brands that we support, that we consider to be that our position to help brands going down that road. But very much indeed the same thing. Just one more for you, Will. Brands are becoming increasingly international, particularly due to the online activities as well and the sales channels as well, and present on multiple marketplaces. What do you see how it's needed to enable this?
Yeah, I think there's two parts to this. So one is the logistics, and the second is the technology. So what I see is brands and retailers present on several marketplaces, their own websites, multiple websites if you're in many different countries. So you've got several sales channels, all of which need a consistent inventory feed and some lead times. And then you've got the question of what do you do with your logistics? Now, if you have one warehouse, then you have what I call very good stock efficiency. By that I mean is all your stock is in one place. There is no risk that you might run out in one site and have too much stock in the other site. It's very simple to run, it's clear, but the problem is that if you are delivering to far parts of the world, it's too slow. And so most of our clients are looking at multiple warehouses to get better speed of delivery, and to get, and I think now 2 to 3 days is standard, and next day is expected for most categories now. And so this balance of good stock efficiency and good speed of delivery is a tension between, do I have one warehouse, do I have a few, do I have quite a lot? And when we've done this work for global fashion brands, we've typically found that they need 4 warehouses. They need one for Europe, rightly positioned, although with the UK Brexit coming up, they might need a second. But one for Europe, one for the US, and again, interesting, that might now be West Coast and East Coast needed, but typically it's been one for the US, and then one for Asia and one for China in addition. And it is a real tension, because there is definitely a move, and it's continuing towards faster and faster delivery speeds, and that means you need more and more local stock holding. But that means your stock ends up being split into multiple places, and it's not where you need it when you need it. So this very much a moving picture, this sort of multiple warehouse model. Now then, if you can imagine now the technology to run this, that you have these multiple sales channels, multiple warehouses, each with its own stock holding, each with its own lead time to the different markets. The technology system that sits in the middle of that, giving you good availability and lead time feeds, taking the orders and passing them to the right warehouse to fulfill them, and enabling you to do the initial stock forecasting and allocation as best as possible is absolutely key. So I think you've got the logistics part of it, and you've got the technology part of it, which need to come together. And Hans, I think you spent some time, both setting up your international network and supporting, the international marketplaces. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how you do that?
Sure, happy to, because yes, it's definitely something which also filling up a lot that in particular from a Scandinavian, I'll say location, I'll say brand perspective. Scandinavia is, yeah, it's a home area for a lot of fashion brands, living and furniture brands as well, design, etc. like that. Of course, the online growth, of course, are giving opportunity for Scandinavian brands to go easier international, reach consumers in areas where the revenue stream is significantly higher than they are in this part of the world, but be able to access those easy and also to the, I'll say, to these expectations, to these types of consumers actually, I'll say, having to buy products. It's of course driven some trends, and why we've been working on some, I'll say, some solutions and a value proposition really to support that journey that brands are going internationally. So it's basically on two components. You kind of repeat them both. It is more like a global network to support a global network of fulfillment partners who understand how to operate B2B and B2C, because it's not about if and or, it's about, you need both. You basically need to be able to operate B2B and B2C in order to also to have the flexibility and reduce risk in an area as well. And as you know also from your end, and you sitting in London, and your experience within this field, like there's a very, very different expectations to online delivery and speed, depends on where you are located in the world. And in the UK, I consider probably one of the most developed area of B2C and online in the world. It was also where Amazon started in 1998. It was not in the US. So the expectations from the consumers is probably higher than it is in Copenhagen of Denmark, or in Germany and Spain, for instance, like that. So in order to reach those consumers, their expectations, you need to have fulfillment locations, and in order to fulfill orders close to where the consumers are, meaning one warehouse to support the entire world ain't suitable. And I know that it's quite convenient and easy to do what I'll say companies normally be doing, but if you want to follow the trends of that and want to reach new revenue streams, you need to get closer. There's also a compliance aspect on it. It's important that you really are familiar and also from a risk and a sustainable point of view, that you are doing partners or doing logistics services with fulfillment partners who understand the local markets and needs. And for instance, the US, where compliance is a big topic compared to here in Europe, it is important you have that, I'll say, right type of partners and understanding how to fulfill and integrate in the right way. And using the word integrate, and you mentioned about technology, it is a key element for us. It's not for us, it's not about doing warehouse operation and distribution alone. A lot of our companies we're talking to, they expect that we can do that kind of stuff, and so that's not necessarily our, I'll say value proposition going to market on that note. It's basically, I consider the role of logistics provider and fulfillment provider also take care of the integration parts as well, and that has to be done in a very I'll say flexible and fast way of doing it. So be able to having a so-called integration platform in order to integrate multiple warehouses at different parts of the world. You mentioned Europe, North America, and you mentioned Asia, and potentially UK if there will be needed for that, in order to combine those warehouses under the same integrations, and as well be able to support. And that's where we come in a little bit, having more like an API integration talk than an EDI talk, because this is actually how marketplaces and this is how web shop integrations very quickly integrating with, in order to fulfill and be able to meet our customers' expectations as well. That we definitely see the whole technology integration platform as an enabler in order to follow the rapid change and follow the international growth in order to do so, and make it easier and controllable for our clients to keep all the activities are managed under the same integrations tool. So that's definitely part of our way. So we don't necessarily ask customers of ours to integrate straight into a warehouse for instance, in Copenhagen. That's fine if it's only for Copenhagen or in that part of the world. But since now it's about integrate with the rest of the world, and to avoid having hundreds of different kind of integrations, different kind of warehouse management system, it's important to have something in between, which can also combine the activities in a flexible way. So yeah, global fulfillment network is key, and integrations platforms or make these for customers as well. Also because it's not all companies or brands we're talking to who are, how to say, have prioritized technology integrations that much as others. That's also what we see, and that's also why we consider it being our, I'll say, job to support on these kind of areas. But yes. So well, what will happen to the retail stores, and what kind of future do they have in this online growth we see in the world? What do you think?
It's a really tough question, and I just sort of appreciate we're about halfway through now, so I'll be quite brief. But footfall is generally down, and these are UK statistics. So in September, it was down 30% in the UK year on year versus September last year. Interestingly, retail parks down -10%, towns -24%, central London -56%, so less than half the football in one of the most international cities in the world. So if footfall is down, we're going to need less stores, that's for sure. There will be less stores around. And those of you who were with us last year will remember I talked about using stores to pick, pack and dispatch stores for collection and return of orders as well for the online world, which really helps. But perhaps something that's worth thinking about is just going back to the question, who are your customers and why do they come to you? So a very interesting example here is Gucci. Obviously a global brand, been around for many, many years. They doubled their sales in a period of less than 2 years. And when you have a big brand, that's an amazing figure to double their sales. And talking to the executives, I asked them, how did you double your sales for such a long-standing and existing brand? And they said, we understood that we have 2 markets, we have 2 customers. We have the traditional luxury customer, who is typically your affluent, older individual. And then we have the millennials. And they said, when they come shopping, the affluent, older customer wants privacy and personal attention. The millennials like to shop socially. They shop with their friends, they like to chat, and they need a very different kind of service. And he said, so we went through our whole product range, designing products that were suitable for both markets. And we trained our store teams in how to work with different customers who want different things. And this whole concept of actually bringing in a whole new customer base has been hugely successful. And if you talk to those people in their 20 to 35-year-old, which I call the millennials, you will find that Gucci is one of the brands that they will typically buy from. Even though that a lot of the product is very aspirational and very expensive. So I do think there's a future for stores, but I think there'll be less of them, and we need to think carefully about where they will be and what and how they will be selling.
Interesting, very interesting. Yeah, I guess we also have all seen that over the last few months that stores has been closing, and the question is, are they opening up again, or are they coming up in different shape and forms and sizes as well, or are they not? Yeah. But thanks very much for that, Will. And then just the last question that I'm having, that's basically what this webinar has, I'll say, lines about, like what will happen with the online in the future? What should the brands expect, plan for? What should we as a supply chain provider plan for. What we're trying to do, of course, it's not our job to I'll say tell our customers on which sales channels they should sell, B2B, B2C. That's their job, and that's what they're good at. But what should we plan for? What's to expect in the future? Do you have any I'll say view on that?
I do, and as you can imagine, many of my clients are asking this same question, and the short answer is that online will continue to grow. So most people think that post COVID-19 there will be a little bit of a drop-off in demand, but then growth will continue beyond that. So if you look at the 5-year horizon, it's going to be more than it is now online, and I think we need to continue planning for the online to grow. In the UK in September, 27.5% of all sales were made online versus 20% in the beginning of the year. But do I think it'll be more than 27.5% in 5 years' time? Definitely. It's going to continue to grow. And what I advise our clients to do is to plan on low, medium, and high scenarios. So the medium scenario will be, you know, a sort of reasonable rate of growth, a little bit of a drop off and a reasonable rate of growth, and then high, you know, will be much higher growth, and low might be, you know, staying pretty much as you are now. Scenarios are really helpful to think through what might happen, you know, in all of those different situations. So I definitely encourage that. That's the scenario planning. My belief, and I've been part of the online world now for 24 years, my belief is the online revolution is only partway through. There is much more to come, and yeah, and more growth will definitely be part of that. Thank you, Hans.
Thank you very much. Very interesting. I'm sure a lot of, I'll say, companies, people are interesting to hear about what to expect in the future. And then, of course, and by that, of course, we hope to receive questions from all of you, and you're more than welcome to send through the chat function, and opening up to the audience to come up with questions, and we will then try to answer them as possible. A few questions. I know Willie has been on the radar. I really would like to add as well, where something like I can see something coming in here, like what should we expect from, for instance, Black Friday this year compared to last year? That was a massive growth last year compared to the previous years. What should we expect this year around?
Yeah, really good question, and it is individual by market. I mean, what we've seen is retailers starting promotions earlier. So Amazon had their Prime Day in October, have already dropped their prices. So I think pretty realistically, I think people are trying to spread the demand of the holiday weekend, as they call it in America, the Black Friday and Monday weekend, over a longer period. Some UK retailers are not participating in Black Friday. They're sort of saying, why should I, you know, overwhelm my logistics facilities to sell products which I don't make money from? You know, and so there is this question of margin and pricing and where you take it. So my sense is that Black Friday will be less important this year than previous years. But to be honest, you know, we just need to wait and see. It's such a competitive market that you know, typically retailers and brands need to respond to each other. So it's very hard to predict, I would say.
Yeah, it's very interesting to hear what's going on, and also what the brands be talking about. You know, some like it and some don't. So it's interesting to see what we're prepared for as well. Another question came in, Will, here, trying to read it out. How can logistics complement e-commerce companies in uncertain times, as now where the market are far from normal? If I should try to put a couple of words to that, of what I mean, like, then okay, I'll consider a little bit about what's the role of a company like the one I'm representing can support e-commerce brands in the future, and I don't know if you have a view on that in terms of role more that like I'll say, logistics fulfillment partners are in terms of be more important going forward in terms of outsourcing, or is the in-house trend you see brands are doing, or how do you see that? Thanks for that question as well, by the way.
Yeah, no, very, very happy to answer that. So I really believe in outsourcing logistics. If you are a brand, particularly, online logistics is really complex and difficult to do well, and many brands who try and do it, realize that quite quickly. So I'm very much in a place where outsourced logistics has a big role to play for the future. And to answer the question, what should the outsourced partners be thinking about? I would really focus on the big trends that are happening online. So what those ones, that probably the biggest one is speed. So how do we get products to consumers more quickly? The other ones are, how do you use your stores for online, as I sort of mentioned before very briefly, for pick, pack and dispatch. And so I think as a logistics provider, being able to provide really good speed, accurate logistics, and being flexible in working with the clients who have stores, complementing the stores and working with them. I think the B2B and B2C combined, which is what you do in Scan, is a very good offer as well. So I think that it's really being aware of the trends in online and anticipating them within the logistics world is how I'd answer that question.
Sure. Thanks for that. And also, just to try to comment that as well. Like, yes, we indeed should try to be flexible. There's also the most expensive way for a company like us to adjust, so we have to, I'll say, provide the list, and how do we do that smart and short. And seeing from our perspective, in order to do so, it's super crucial there's a transparent and a partnership approach to the companies we're doing business with, and understand really the path down the road, what I expect from the future as well. So thanks for answering that. One more question comes in, but I guess a little bit you maybe have answered to that. So it's a more question to you, Will. Your thoughts on insourcing versus outsourcing of fulfillment and warehouse operations. I guess, seen from my perspective, I know what I would say, but you more like from a neutral perspective. Maybe you will just give your answer to that.
Yeah, and I think, as I was saying before, it is highly complex, e-commerce logistics, and I think as a brand, it's a decision that ultimately that you need to make. Do you want to invest capital, skills, people in doing it yourself, or would you rather have a third party doing it for you? And ultimately, that's a board level decision. And some of our clients say, look, this is a core capability. We think that we want to be better and different than our competitors. We are going to do it ourselves because of that. And so some of the really big online retailers, will definitely want to do it themselves. They see that as a core competence they absolutely need to have. And I think for other clients, they say, look, we would rather deploy our people, our capital, our skills somewhere else. We want to build our product range, and we want to get a better marketing, better brand, and so on. And so it is. And do you know what? If the logistics are good, that's good enough. They don't have to be the best. If the logistics are as good as the competition, it's really about the product and the brand and the marketing that's really going to make the difference. So we're going to invest on that. So I'd say ultimately it's a board decision on which way do you want to go. I've also got to say that people look at it and don't think it's a board decision. They say, well, let's do a tender and we'll see who's cheaper. But ultimately, I think you've got to come back to what are you about as a business, and is this really going to be a core part of your capabilities? Yeah,
without mentioning anything in details, we see different types of examples of that, how that's being handled through companies. So, but thanks for that. One more questions come in, also minded towards you, Will. Something you mentioned earlier during the previous questions about fashion. Will Treasure mentioned that fashion online sale hasn't increased in the UK and US. Any thoughts on why this acceptance? I'm not sure if that's was right understood, but I'll let you to comment on that. Because
yeah, no, and so I think in the UK particularly, online fashion is up 20% year on year, whereas on average non-food is up 40%. So it is up, but it's just less than the rest of the market. I think the impact of people not going into offices is pretty big. Not going to parties, not going to weddings, not going to funerals. So people have not been buying smart workwear in the way they would have done. And interesting, what I see is a lot of fashion brands moving much more to build up their casual and leisure ranges and so on because of that. So I think the issue with fashion is that overall the demand has changed significantly and overall demand is down. And hence why online has not grown as fast as some of the other areas. If all you're doing is being on a Zoom call or a webinar or a Teams call, you don't need to have a very smart outfit. It's just so I think it's a function of what's changed.
Perhaps maybe a shirt and a jacket, but no one can see what kind of jeans are you wearing, right?
Exactly. So that would be my sense on why online fashion is not as growing as fast as the other areas.
That's good. I'm saying like that. So what it is, I guess, it's also something to do that fashion in generally, like marketplaces like Zalando and Boost.com, which is a big one up here in the Nordic. There's already a relatively high, I'll say, online sales activities already. So I guess the growth rate compared to you mentioned do-it-yourself or food, for instance, are higher because it came from a lower range than others. So I could imagine something to do about it too. So, all right. Well, thanks for that. I'm not so sure in terms of more questions. I think we are kind of, I'll say, there's no more questions coming in. If anyone have additional questions to what has been provided of information of this topic, which is really has something to do about what we should expect in the future, and I guess it's also come like should brands continue to invest in the online, and I think you have answered some of that these kind of questions in a different way. Well, that online sales have come here to stay, and it will be I'll say combined versions of B2B and B2C. It's not either or. It seems to be able to support sales channels both in the offline and the online market, and it's about balancing that as well and being ready for changes which is coming more rapidly than we have seen before. That seems a little bit of what I'm kind of reading what you're saying.
Absolutely, and I would add in, keep your logistics flexible, make your supply chain resilient, and expect continued growth would be the key messages for really for the next year to 18 months. That's what I encourage everyone to do.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much for that. We definitely will try to do the best from our side too to support, I'll say, these rapid changes in the industry from a supply chain perspective as well. So, and that is definitely what we see and hope we're going to do going forward. But if there's no other questions, I will really just want to thank all of you who has been participating in this webinar here with where we have the opportunity to get his insight and views. And I just want to, if you hold on a second here, I'm seeing something here. There will be some more questions come in. I just have some difficulties to see through the little dashboard I'm having right now. So that is why. Sorry, this is so one more to you. Well, as well here. It's just I have to tap down. So could Will comment on his version to the sustainable and environmental driven logistics in e-commerce when stores are expected, diminishing in numbers. What do you have a view on that one? It's also something I'll comment on from this end. The brands we're talking to, sustainability and in Danish words called bæredygtighed, is just up on here, how we can support that. What's your view on this? It's about the signal value from a brand too, right?
So I mean, I think there's several changes that I would think about. So the number one issue that I would be concerned around is packaging, you know, we want our customers to have a really good experience when they get the product that they have, but I'm also conscious of the amount of cardboard, paper, other plastic products that come, you know, with that. So I think there's a lot of work going on in terms of the packaging. I think some of the solutions are still very expensive, but they will come down in price. So I think continuing to work on the packaging, because I think from the customer's perspective, that's what they see most of all. And then I think you know, the carriers, the delivery companies are working hard on electric vehicles, and pretty much every delivery company is now testing out, piloting electric vehicles for some of their business, particularly for the most urban areas. And I think as a brand, I think you can really encourage them to continue to do that, and so on. I think it's very encouraging as a customer when you see you know, your delivery vehicle being electric rather than being diesel, coming to your house. And then I think the third thing is that there has been very little research on the carbon footprint of e-commerce versus the carbon footprint of going to stores. And what the research that has been done is very dependent on how you get to the stores when you go there. If you go by car, then it's typically a lot less carbon footprint to have it delivered. If you don't go by car, then it's better to go in person. And I think, you know, the research has been quite limited, and it's certainly not been publicized. I think there is a really good case for online, particularly online food delivery, which is actually significantly lower carbon footprint than going to the stores, driving to the stores and parking there. And it's just not had the attention, I think, from people. So I would really like to see that. And I appreciate, I've looked at this from a logistics point of view. Clearly, there's sorts of bits from about the product and the sourcing point of view, which is probably a bigger topic. But from a logistics point of view, those are the ways that I see we need to think about sustainability.
For sure, like you know, we definitely sense, as I mentioned earlier, that we definitely have seen an increase or interest of this topic. No doubt about it. It's been a nice thing to have, but sometimes we experience that customers that is make this system, of course, due to price, how important it is. We just see that now, that due to the growth in this online, how can we ensure that we're doing this in a sustainable way, also from a CO2 perspective, and I believe so. There's stuff to do. Questions that continue coming in, I can see here, and there was one more again for mine on you, so you will. So Will talked about downtown for customers in stores. Downturn, I guess it could be. How can brands differentiate themselves in the online world? We definitely see different kind of shapes of online, I'll say, marketplaces and web shops, etc. like that. Some seem to be more user friendly and more accurate than others. Is that what any ideas on how brands can differentiate themselves in the online world? Not people are able to go downtown and try the products.
It's a really big question, and so on, and I think a lot of it is around how we think about marketing, and the ability to really turn on effectively digital marketing. So there's been move over the last 15 years to move to more and more digital marketing. And so I would say having a strong marketing person, strong marketing lead who can really drive your online sales through acquisition and through retention, I think is really important. In fact, I was talking to a small retailer this week. They have trebled their sales in the last year. And they sell mainly through Amazon. They have their own website, and they brought in a marketing lady, and she had increased the proportion of sales through their own website from 5% to 30% in 5 weeks. But she was their first marketing manager. Clearly, they're a very young business, the first online marketing manager. They're a very young business, but it just tells you what good marketing can do to that. So digital marketing, I think, is a really important skill in terms of getting your presence there. And then, what your website is like, you really want the website to have 2 real functions. So one is to inspire. So people who come to your website actually come away with ideas and thoughts and think, I would like to wear that, I would like to have that. And it's also then to be able to browse and buy, so to find the product you want and then to buy it easily and so on. So good website design. I mean, most bigger online retailers have this pretty nailed now. They have it pretty, it's good. But some of the smaller retailers are still struggling a little bit with getting their websites to be good. And, just some of the basics of good product descriptions, customer reviews, ability to find the product, good categorizations, and so on. So, the whole search and then reassurance for the customer that this is a really good product. I think those are some of the things I would be thinking about how to stand out with your online website.
Thanks. Well, there's also, I guess, that could also drive, I'll say, a decrease in returns of certain products. We definitely experienced that the brands we are doing business with in the, I'll say, women fashion segment have a higher, I'll say, return rate than other brands for various reasons. But I guess that the development of online sales, I'll say, possibility and accuracy on website is also helping on that, including the CO2. We don't have to send things return as well. I think we're coming to an end, but there's a couple of more questions coming in, and maybe just want to take the last questions before we have to round this up. And I don't know if there's more like not so sure-minded. Maybe I definitely should try to answer that as well. And the question is like, has COVID-19 created more or less opportunities for logistics professionals to find employment in e-commerce? A new role which didn't exist before being created due to the pandemic?
Yes.
And
yes is the short answer to that. When online sales are up 40% to 90%, you absolutely need more very good logistics people, and making the transition from B2B logistics to business to consumer logistics is definitely a good thing to do. That's where the demand is for professionals. So the answer is yes, there are more opportunities. Of course, everybody wants somebody who has done it before. So if you can make the switch within your own business now, then I would definitely encourage you to, build up your knowledge and capability of online logistics.
Yeah, if I should put a comment or two on that one, then I definitely see that the logistics industry are very impacted by what's happening in the growth in e-commerce. Also from a logistics perspective, due to the fact that as logistics or supply chain provider has become more closer to the core business, because every time we see brands make a change in sales or I'll say demand or anything like that, we as a supply chain department or divisions of fulfillment have to really understand and adjust to do these kind of things. And it's not a secret that some of the deployments we have made over the last, I'll say, couple of years are not necessarily coming from the logistics industry either. They're actually coming from the technology and integration industry as well, because that has been part of the new norm. that integrations is just playing a big part of that. So we definitely see that despite this is indeed a people business, making decisions, etc. like that, and thank God for that. So that's how it is. It's a people business still, but something like technology, both to support operational efficiency from an analytic perspective, to help with the forecasting we talked a little bit about before, but indeed also be an enabler around helping companies going through fast transitions to help with integration. So we definitely see also different types of, I'll say, experiences are coming into the logistics industry where it not necessarily come from the traditional world to support this kind of journey. We also see that also on all ages as well, and it's something to do about the stakeholders on the other side, that the companies we'll be talking to when we're talking about fulfillment, B2B and B2C. Suddenly there's not only one or two people or stakeholders involved. No, that's often a band of five, from finance to e-commerce sales to traditional freight forwarding to warehouse and an IT, etc. like that. In order to cope with all this, to be in the helicopter, being logistics, it requires different kind of expertise in to ensure that diversity we having our dialogues with our clients. So I hope that answers the questions on that. But on that note, I think we also came to I'll say, an end of this webinar. And on that note, well, I will again like to thank you for taking the time in this, I'll say, this exciting times where we also waiting for what's going on in the US. We will time will tell, and what's going to happen in the UK where you're based, and then what to expect from that. A lot of questions, of course, has been from brands from the Central Europe part of area, like I'll say what to expect in the UK. I'm not going to put you on the States as you were last year. On that note, we can only guess about that. There's a couple of decisions we need to be made before we can be smart on that one. But it's definitely also a topic which fills up a lot, how to manage these kind of disruptions and uncertainties in the world where there's a big consumer market. But thanks again, Will, for participate, and again to all of you who took the time to join this webinar. I want to thank you very much for doing that, and I hope you find it worthwhile to join and give some answers to some of the questions you have around the topic. And again, this webinar will be shared with all of you, and also the questionnaire as well at the same time. So on that note, I'd like to thank you everyone for participating, and have a great day.